Okay, welcome back. We're on Chapter 12. And Chapter 12 is all about e-commerce system, the big systems that people use for doing, shopping carts and, payment verification and all the rest of that stuff. There's actually going to be practically no HTML or CSS in this chapter. Woohoo! Well, perhaps woohoo. Kind of depends. So let's start with the learning objectives on page 517. And so we're supposed to define the term, identify the benefits and risks, describe the business model. What are some of the security and encryption kind of things? What is EDI? What are the trends and projections? What are some issues? And basically, what are the options if you want to do that shopping cart payment verification system thing for you? Okay. So at the very beginning, they talk about some definitions, and their definition of e-commerce is kind of long-winded because they get paid by the word, I guess. But essentially, my definition of what e-commerce is basically doing business over the web. I mean, that's it. I mean, whatever it is your business is, you're just doing it over the web rather than having someone come to your storefront and hand you a $10 bill. Whatever that is, just doing it over the web. On page 518, they jump into what are the advantages, and none of these are going to be startling news. You're going to go, yeah, okay, whatever. So, for the business, advantages for the business, it's a significantly reduced cost of operations. I don't have to have a building. I don't have to have insurance for the building. I don't have to pay the utilities for the building. I don't have to pay off the rent or maybe the loan. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of infrastructure associated with having a building. I mean, lots and lots of stuff you got to do that if you had strictly an e-commerce, you could, instead of having 17 locations across the U.S., you'd probably have one location across the U.S., and so you'd have like a 1 to 16 benefit on how much you pay for rent. So, clearly, overhead for structures, that's a big deal. The other one talks about customer satisfaction. A lot of companies took on this role, becoming on the internet, not just necessarily to make more sales, although that was clearly a cool idea, but they thought that they can improve communications. I mean, people go in, for example, to the Apple store or to Best Buy, and they want to talk to an Apple genius or somebody from the Geek Squad. They want to talk to somebody to ask them about a problem. The web has an opportunity to do that on so many ways. I mean, some of them are really good. I mean, there's a frequently asked questions section on the web page that might have the answer to your question. Maybe there's an online forum where there's 17 other people asking the exact same question. So you go, okay, now I know how to do that. And then there's maybe a chat system where you go on and say, hey, I'm having trouble with such and such, and somebody comes online and does an online chat. So for a lot of people, this is an increase in communication, because otherwise to perform that, they would have to physically get in their car and drive to the store. And so this provides you, for example, if I'm having trouble with my iPhone, I am not going to, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I am not going to drive down to the Apple store at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay. The other one is data management. So if you have an online system that handles, you as a customer, gathers data about your order, gathers data about your payment, and then it automatically, deducts from the inventory and all the rest of those things, it all seamlessly integrated into your existing system, you can actually come up with some really cool synergies, like I just mentioned. Unlike other systems, not that many years ago, you went to the till at a store and you went through and they were scanning the little UPC codes, and hopefully behind the scenes they were deducting that from the inventory. So at the end of the day, they say, well, we should have 4 of those on the shelf because we sold 8 of them. That kind of system. Well, for a while, that UPC system didn't exist. And so this is more akin to the UPC system, where I buy something on the web, it instantly finds what warehouse it's in, deducts that from the inventory, does the shipment, does everything. Anyway, so it's not that new, but it used to be. Okay. And then, of course, higher sales. Anytime when you make something available 24/7 and to people in different, all over the world, there's a strong likelihood you're going to get more sales. So, again, I'm a storefront operation. I have one store in Milwaukee. That's it. And I sell Beanie Babies. I am not going to get that many customers from Japan. But if I have a website, then no matter what the time zone is, 24/7 operation, I'm going to get more sales. Okay, cool. So that's the advantages for a business. Now, obviously, the consumer has some advantages, and they're not necessarily congruent with the advantages of the business. Just telling you. So the one is just the sheer convenience of it all. I mean, I can buy, tools sitting in my underwear. I like that commercial on TV where the guy's getting all dressed up and he's getting ready to go to the bank, and the little puppet character says, why are you doing that? You could get a mortgage or loan, whatever it is they were doing, just using your computer. So the next scene, he's in his underwear sitting on the couch, getting his mortgage. So yeah, very convenient. I mean, I'll admit, I might wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, oh man, I forgot it's Aunt Mary's birthday. I absolutely forgot. I need, to buy something now and have expedite shipping. So yeah, I do that. Okay, comparisons. Now, this is an excellent way for people, for consumers, not necessarily for the businessmen. But, I go to one of these sites that have like 15 different toaster ovens, and I get to see all the reviews, I get to see all the prices, I get to compare features, and hopefully my decision won't be based solely on price. But it's kind of cutthroat. I mean, if there's 17 vendors selling the exact same model, and they're only off by a couple of dollars, well, yeah, I'll probably go to the cheaper one of the 3 or 4. So yes, that's an advantage to the consumer. Now, admittedly, that's pretty cutthroat. So margins for the businesses are going to have to be kind of slim, because yeah, if you're charging $17 for something that everyone else is charging $16 for, then you're probably not going to get that many sales. It's okay. And then of course, wider selections. A store can't possibly. Let's say you go into a clothing store, and how many dress size zeros are they going to have? Or how many dress size 22s are they going to have? Right? So they stock what it is they think the customers are going to want. And they don't stock everything in the store. They don't have enough room. So if you have somebody who needs size 0 dress, then most likely they're not going to find that in the store. But online, you can order a size 0 jeans. Okay. So yes, much wider selection on the web, because they don't have to stock it in multiple locations. They can leave it in the warehouse as long as it takes to sell them off. It doesn't matter. It's not costing them hardly anything. So all is not well in e-commerce world. On the next page, 519, they talk about the risks associated with this. So, from a business perspective, again, starting from the businesses, there's an awful lot of technology dependence here, right? I mean, if somebody cut the fiber connection to the building, or there was an electrical outage, or heaven forbid somebody went in and, a hacker messed up your website, you're going to have 0 sales. If you built your model on how many dollars per day you needed to make to stay afloat, being shut down for a day or a week could be doggone devastating, particularly if your margins are pretty doggone thin. You still got to meet payroll and all the rest of this stuff. So being technology dependent isn't all that great. If I had a storefront and had electronic cash registers like practically everyone does, I'd probably have a little battery backup thing, and if I was really, really paranoid, I might have like 2 internet connections going into the building rather than 1, and maybe have a backup phone system, or all sorts of contingencies. When you're doing on the web, most of the time you don't have direct access to depending on how you're hosted, but most of the time you're not going to have direct access to that vendor and say, well, how's your generator doing today? Is it topped off with fuel? Because that's somebody else's business to do. Anyway, technology dependent. The other one is fraudulent transactions. Yes, it is more likely that someone would use a stolen credit card online than face-to-face, because they don't want to be face-to-face. They don't want cameras seeing them, right? They want to be able to not have anyone see what they look like. So, for example, if I stole an ID, a driver's license, and a credit card of some Asian woman, and I went in and tried to buy something, and they said, "Let me see your ID," and I showed them my ID, they could take one look at the ID and say, "That's not you." But over the web, no one sees my ID, and no one sees my face, and so the incidences of fraud is higher. Okay. Fraud from a business perspective hurts, because what happens is usually the payment card system is going to just hold back those charges that are somehow fraudulent, because they don't want to pass that cost back down to the guy whose credit card was stolen. So essentially the retailer, quite frankly, is left on the hook. They sold a box of Beanie Babies, and yet they're not going to get paid for it. Somebody has to lose. And how about this? Somebody has to lose, and it ain't going to be the bank. Okay. So, and the bank probably doesn't want it to be the customer. So instead, it's the business who loses. Customer reluctance. Although electronic commerce has been around for a long time, there are still people out there who, I don't know, I don't trust buying stuff over the internet. It's like, oh man, really? There kind of sort of could be like an age barrier. Now, I'm not being an ageist? Is that a real word? Anyway, I'm not trying to put down people who are elderly, but I'm just saying, how many times do you see ads on TV for things like, hearing aids and special cell phones just for elderly? I mean, those are targeted markets. You don't see them online because they don't really expect the 70, 80, 90-year-old people to be online much. That's probably wrong, because let me tell you, my mom, who's 80-something years old, is definitely on, and she definitely spends money on the web. But anyway, back to the story. So, customer reluctance. You can kind of sort of counter that if you're a business. You can kind of try to sweeten the pot a little. Like, oh, well, I'm going to give you free shipping, and we're going to have this very, very relaxed, no questions asked return policy. So, if you buy this thing and you really can't tell if it's going to fit, but you go ahead and buy it anyway, and then you get it, and you go, oh man, it didn't fit. If you make that painful for them to return the system, return the part, then they're probably never going to shop online again. So you got to make that easy for them. No questions asked. Maybe include a return mailer in the package, that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So, customer reluctance. So we'll talk about that again when we get down to the credit card part. And then, of course, from a business perspective, is the risk is there is tremendous amount of competition out there. Competition, it used to be big companies competed with big companies. And little companies competed with little companies, but big did not compete with little. In other words, Sears and Roebuck in the day when they were selling tires didn't really compete with this mom and pop operation over here that had 2 employees. The big corporate environment wasn't really in competition with these guys. But on the web, they are. On the web, you can't tell if this is a big company or a small company. All you're looking at is tire sizes and prices. And this guy says he's got 4 sets of tires for $60 a piece. I'm going, wow, that's pretty cool. I want to get those. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. So from a business perspective, that's a risk. Okay, this is probably a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.